welcome. Welcome back to the Kohatsu Cave of Games. This is episode 3, Sentinels of the Multiverse. I have picked up a lot of new games this year, and I do tend to try out new games versus play old ones again when I get new games, because I just can't wait to play them. So with my normal game group, I introduced Sentinels of the Multiverse. And I explained it as a cooperative card game where everyone gets their own deck as they play a superhero. And I basically didn't have to explain any more, and they just wanted the game out of the box as soon as possible. My group does like cooperative games, so just throwing in any aspect of superheroes is a home run. I was very intrigued when I first read about this. I had ordered directly from the publisher's website, Greater Than Games. It is a 2 to 5 player game that will take 30 to 60 minutes to play, and it is very light on strategy. It's by no means a super strategic game. You do have some tactical decisions from round to round about what's best to attack, but overall it is meant to be light and fun and full of comic book goodness. So without further ado, I will delve into the rules and overall explanation of the game, and then give my thoughts along the way. Alright, this is a setup for a 4-player game. I'm going to go ahead and handheld this portion of the video, because a lot of the effects are based on card effects, and I'll spend too much time positioning the camera, zooming in and out. I'd rather just do it handheld. To set up the game, however many players you have will pick one deck. That deck will have a character card. That character card will indicate the starting life of that character, which you'll then notate either using your counter or dice or pen and paper, however you want. Then each character has their own deck that you'll just shuffle and draw the top 4 cards for that will form your starting hand. All the players in the game will do that. The environment deck will just sit by its lonesome, all nice and pretty. And the villain deck will always have a specific start order. And you always find that out by just reading the card itself. In this case, for Baron Blade, at the start of the game, put Baron Blade's villain card and this card into play. All the villains are pretty much the same, but it'll always tell you starting condition. In this case, look through the villain deck for the card named Mobile Defense Platform and put it into play. So in that case, you just take the Mobile Defense Platform, put it into play, and lo and behold, Baron Blade is immune to damage. Super sucky card. This indicates that it has 10 hit points, so it'll be the team's goal to destroy the Mobile Defense Platform first. And then you'll start whomping on Baron Blade himself. So the cards are always very descriptive as far as the villains go. It almost plays itself like an AI. You'll just read whatever the card says and do it. For turn order, when the game starts, the villain gets to take a turn first, followed by every single hero in clockwise order, followed by the environment deck. After the environment deck resolves, that basically concludes a turn, and you start all over again with the villain. All 3 turns are pretty much the same. For the villain turn, if any card says that it does a power or action at the start of the villain turn, then you resolve those. After you've resolved all of those, you'll draw a card off of the top of the villain deck and resolve that. And then any card at the end of the villain turn, if it says at the end of the villain turn he'll punch you for 2, then all of those resolve. Then the villain's turn is over, and you go on to all 4 heroes. For your turn, just like the villain, if you have any cards face up in front of you that say at the start of the turn do this, you will resolve those first. followed by always playing a card from your hand next. After you've played a card from your hand, you will use a power that is on a card that is face up in front of you. Every character at the beginning of the game has an innate power that will not go away, so you will always have at least one power to use. But other cards will give you extra powers, so you'll power yourself up as the game goes on. After you've used your power, you will just draw a card from your deck and then end your hero turn, enacting any abilities that happen at the end of your turn. Every hero will take a turn just like that. Then the environment deck gets to go, with the same concept applying to the environment deck. If a face-up card in an environment pile or the environment deck says that it has an effect, then you'll resolve it. Then you'll play a new card. Then you'll resolve anything that says at the end of the environment turn. There is no limit to the amount of cards that the villain has out and the environment deck has out. So it'll be your strategic decision as to what to go for during the game. You'll have to work cooperatively to figure out your plan of attack. Alright, now to go through a quick sample turn. As always, the villain gets to go first. So you'll just go ahead and read whatever his text says for at the start of the villain turn. In his case, if the villain trash has 15 or more cards in it, then Baron Blade's Terra Lunar Impulsion Beam activates, unfortunately dragging the moon into the earth, and we all get squished and exploded, which is very bad because that means he wins. But it's a condition that you'll always have to check at the start of every villain turn. If it is not resolved, meaning there's less than 15 villain cards in the trash, then you'll go to playing a card, which in this case would be this card, which is the powered remote turret. At the end of the villain turn, this card deals each hero target 2 projectile damage. If the mobile defense platform is in play, increase damage dealt by this card by 1. So that's what happens when you play a card. It is a device, so it just basically enters play and will stay there until it gets exploded by the heroes. You'll then go to the end of the villain turn. You'll check the villain card first to see if anything happens at the end of the villain turn, which in this case it does not. So then you go to his minions and devices. This just prevents damage to Baron Blade, and this will attack everybody for 3 damage. So everyone goes, ouch, and gets owned by the super turn of doom. The villain's turn is then concluded, and then it goes to each hero. There are 3 types of card effects in the game. One-shots are basically one-time shots, and equipment cards and ongoing cards are both cards, if you play them from your hand, then they basically stay in play and become equipped by your character that you can use for every turn. The reasoning for 2 different types is some cards will affect only equipment cards. So if you have ongoing cards out, then you're protected. That card won't go away. But for your turn, you will pick one of these 4 cards to play. Then you get to use 1 power. If the card you play has a power on it, then you can play that card and then use that card's power in the same turn. So for instance, if I decided to pick this card and say, I'm going to play this card, guys, then that is the card you've played. Now you go into your play a power phase of your turn, which can be Tempest deals each non-hero target 2 cold damage, or your innate power of dealing all non-hero targets 1 projectile damage. So in this particular case, I would obviously choose that card because it'll do 2 damage to everybody. There might be an environment effect or a villain effect that might prevent cold damage, or it might hurt me if I do cold damage, so then I'll revert back to my innate power because it's projectile damage. So if I played this card, then I used its power, then everybody gets hit for 2. Baron Blade himself is immune because of the defense platform, but I would do 2 damage to the defense platform and 2 damage to the turret. Then I would conclude my turn by drawing my card into my hand, and it'd be the next hero's go. Now some rules of note as far as this game is concerned. A rule that is often overlooked is if you do not play a card from your hand and you do not use a power, you get to draw 2 cards instead of 1. There are some instances where that is actually a good thing, especially if the villain wiped you out and you have no cards in front of you. Then it might be to your advantage to just start stockpiling up cards. There are also some decks that do better if you build up your hand set first. So you can use that just to pass your turn to build up your hand, so on the next turn you can unload those extra 2 cards as 2 more points of damage or something. The rules are very specific. You have effects that start at the beginning of the turn, then you have your normal turn, and then things happen at the end of the turn. If the card states, then if a certain effect expires at the start of your turn, then that means whatever you use during your turn will remain in effect until it is the start of your next turn. Then that effect will go away. There are some cards, like Wrath here, whose power is prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to the Wrath. There is no stipulation stating that that expires at the start of her next turn. So if you had multiple turns where you just use this power over and over, then you would build a 2, 4, 6, 8 damage shield, but just for that next attack, and then the damage shield would expire. So you have to make sure you read every card and just apply it accordingly. After all the heroes have done their turn, hopefully getting rid of the mobile defense platform, it'll go to the environment deck. The environment deck is usually good or bad, like what I said. In this case, we're confronted with a plummeting monorail. At the start of the environment turn, this card deals 2 targets with the highest HP, 5 melee damage each. Note this states at the start of the environment turn. Well, that has already occurred. We have passed it, and we have now drawn a card. So this card's effect will not actually occur until everybody has gone again. And then at the start of the turn, this damage will take place, which gives the heroes 1 full turn to do 10 damage to the monorail to get rid of it. That's exactly how the flow mechanics work. So say it's been an entire turn, you did 10 damage to this, so it's gone. Then the next turn will come, and oh, look at that, we've got police backup. At the end of the environment turn, this card deals 1 projectile damage to the villain character card. And then it'll only go away whenever a villain card would force a player to discard a card. So this card might stay out, and it'll just stay out. And every time that the environment deck has its turn, at the start of the turn, old Baron Blade, assuming the mobile defense platform is gone, will take a shot, and he'll go down by 1 hit point. Alright, well that's it for the rules explanation of Sentinels of the Multiverse. Now I'll go over some few final thoughts of what I think about the game and who it's designed for and who really should play it and who should buy it. Okay, real quick before the video ends, I was watching it and editing it and noticed I left out 2 pretty key things with the game, so I'll just go over them real quick before the video ends. The first one is there are equipment cards and ongoing cards that say limited. All limited means is that there can only be 1 copy of that card in play. So if the game forces you to draw another card of the same name and put it in play, then that second card just gets immediately discarded. There's nothing you can do about it, oh well. Cards that don't say limited on it, you can have as many instances or copies of that card on the table. Secondly, the overall winning and losing conditions of the game, I never actually touched on. But essentially, if the villain dies, if it runs out of hit points, then the heroes win. If all all of the heroes die, then the villain wins. Now, sometimes the villain card will set extra rules on top of that, but that's basically how the game will be won or lost. When your specific character gets killed and loses all their hit points, you actually don't have to throw your cards on the table and play with your phone for a half hour while everyone else gets to play. All heroes actually enter kind of a last stand state and stay in the game. They don't get to draw any more cards, but on the back of every hero card, it lists 3 additional powers that they get to choose from. So when it becomes your turn, you actually get to pick one of those 3 powers. And they are actually all unique to each hero. They all have different last stand powers. But it makes for a very interesting conclusion when you've got 3 of the 4 heroes dead and they're barely breathing and they're giving their all to the one final hero that can become victorious. So those are the things I forgot, and now you know. Alright, so that pretty much explains how you play Sentinels of the Multiverse. Very quick game, very easy. You can fit 4 or 5 players in definitely within an hour. Very cool game. I've had mostly positive remarks about the artwork. It is comic book-esque, so basically you're either biased towards it or you aren't. I know a lot of people have been asking what my favorite character is. My favorite character is Bunker! He is sort of an Iron Man-esque defense mobile platform who can switch ongoing modes to go into assault mode or defense mode or recharge mode, but his super attack is he's got this big old BFG cannon that can store cards under it every turn and then blow all of the cards under it to do super massive damage. So it's kind of like a charge up beam attack. He is epic. I love him a lot. As far as people who will like this game, I have played it with my wife and she does like it a lot. I have played it with all of my friends, and they all loved it a lot. So I'd say, bye. For the past few months, it has only been available through the publisher developer's website, Greater Than Games. But now they have secured distribution through other online sources, so the game is finally starting to seep out among the masses. But it has been a big hit with my gaming group when we've finally hunkered down and completed a game of Dominant Species, which I do own and fully love. Our brains hurt, and Sentinels of the Multiverse gives us that escape to where you kind of do have to think, but it's cooperative and it's in such an engrossing universe that the theme definitely makes you not worry about the so-called lack of strategic content. It's basically your tactical decisions for each turn, debating on if you want to power your character up or deal with the threats at hand. Big thumbs up from me, and I look forward to playing it. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to subscribe, you can subscribe on my YouTube channel that this is on. You can also go to my WordPress blog that I've got for good old gaming in Arizona. And as always, you can check and comment on Board Game Geek. My username I'll go ahead and put there too. And that's it. So until next time, keep on gaming. There are my kids hiding under the table during that final segment there. Eating some little frozen treats. Say hi.
Hi. Hi. Well, I want another one of those.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
Me too.
All right, bye.